It's the 110th Annual National Audubon Society's Christmas bird count. Here in New Mexico, the count has been going on since 1949. Karen Stockdale from Audubon, New Mexico, explains this volunteer-based survey.
Basically, there are just regular old folks who get together and they do what's called a Christmas bird count circle. Every year they go back to the same exact places and count all the birds and the different variety of species that they see, and then submit that data to a compiler who then gathers, and they all basically fold in all that information around the country so that scientists can really look at the trends in bird data over the years. And so earlier this year, in February, we compiled all that information, and our scientists released the Birds and Climate Change Report, which took the last 40 years of Christmas bird count data because it was the most consistent and there was a large number of data across the country. And from that, they were able to really document evidence that climate change is having an impact and that birds are basically moving their ranges a little bit northward.
One might think counting birds would be difficult as they move freely around, yet Stockdale says she's impressed with the accuracy in the volunteers' work.
Every person in this Christmas bird count circle is basically gathering their own list. And so, maybe you have 15 volunteers that are doing a CBC circle. Those 15 volunteers are all individually submitting their data. And so you're able to really get a pretty good snapshot of what is out there. And a little bit of variation is not really that important. It doesn't really skew the data. It is true that a bird may basically be following you, but I think when you're out there and really trying to make sure that you're absorbing basically what's going on in nature around you, you can pretty much tell if this is the same bird soaring overhead or if it's a flock that's moving through. And I'm pretty impressed with most folks who are going out there and doing this and their ability to basically scan the landscape and very quickly come up with an estimate of how many birds are in a flock.
Audubon, New Mexico is expecting between 550 to 1,000 volunteers this year. One doesn't have to be an experienced bird watcher to volunteer.
We make sure that we match up folks who have more experience with folks who don't have as much experience. And the best way to get involved is to actually go to our website, nm.audubon.org. And on that, we have all the leaders, their contact information, and the dates that the Christmas bird count is going to happen in the different communities across New Mexico. It happens within this 3-week period, essentially, from the 14th of December through the 5th of January, so that you can schedule, depending on what's going on in your own town, but to schedule a single day within that 3-week block so that we can really get a good snapshot.
Data from previous bird counts show that nationally 60% of species are moving northward and inland, which is also being seen here in New Mexico.
There are many of the mountain birds that are spending less time in New Mexico, probably staying a little north in Colorado still. But there are birds in Central America and Mexico that we're starting to see in southern New Mexico that we've never seen. So the New Mexico Ornithological Society has really been doing some studies and looking more closely into some of those new sightings, which is exciting for some of the birders in New Mexico. They are down in the Boot Heel quite a bit these days.
Stockdale says the trends over the last 40 years may be an indicator of global warming. She also says they are working with state government to protect wildlife corridors.
We also worked pretty closely with the state government in looking at wildlife corridors and making sure that we could really essentially think about our land use planning and some of our highways and infrastructure and really protect some of those spaces that we still have in New Mexico. We know that if you look at all the neighboring states, development is coming. There's a lot of pressures in a lot of different communities, and yet we still have these wonderful intact habitats. And basically, the more that those habitats are connected, the greater adaptability it allows for all kinds of wildlife, And so we've been pretty excited. Governor Richardson recently joined Governor Ritter in Colorado to team up and identify some of these wildlife corridors between our two states. And we think that there's a lot of really wonderful things that are going on. So, as much as it may be alarming that there are these trends that are having really troubling impacts on bird populations, we also see that there are some pretty exciting solutions that are coming out.
Karen Stockdale, Audubon, New Mexico. For more information, visit their website at nm.audubon.org. For KSFR News, I'm Rachel Kennedy.